we are living organisms. The body, the psychology, the self, the longing spirit, our relational way of being is through a body. And I feel like we are so deeply shaped by the social narratives, the political narratives, the narratives of power, who deserves and who doesn't. That all gets into our tissues, into our cells, into our belief systems. And then we often reenact that even then when we don't believe in it. And often I'll say Soma because it breaks up that automatic listening of body. It's like, how's your Soma? What's happening in your Soma? Which just basically means your lived embodied experience. So that's what we mean by body and somatics. It's pretty different. And that there's wisdom and sensation, there's information and aliveness or pulsations that goes along with our thinking and our emotions and our relationships. It's not separable until we die, and then it's a mystery. And I think the body plays an essential role in transformation, like the kind of transformation where we're changed and can be and do and love in different ways than we maybe learned to before.
Yo, you made it. My name is Omar Shaker, and I'm honored to welcome you to the Gumpcast, where we have deep conversations about the human spirit and what keeps us going despite the shittiness of it all. Our goal is to encourage you to feel seen, heard, and understood. So tune in for real and raw conversations and become part of them on findgumption.com. What are you and your body longing for? How do you carry systemic issues in your posture? What wants to heal? What is a declaration that you can make to the world? And what are you and your body a commitment to? I am Omar, your host, and I will prepare you for a very enlightening guest, Staci Haines. And before I jump into her credentials and try to answer some of these questions with her, I want to say that Staci is first and foremost a human with an incredible amount of both compassion and knowledge. She showed up in my life while I was going through my divorce, and her book, Politics of Trauma, has given me so many dependable tools and ideas as far as how to lean into my body and how to understand what is going on with it from a somatic experience and use all of that to declare a new me to the world. That book has single-handedly improved my resilience and my ability to bounce back in general. Staci has founded several organizations, namely Generative Somatics and Generation 5. They both support social justice movements through somatics, a field that she has been teaching in for 22 years now. She also has her own somatic coaching practice, and in addition to Politics of Trauma, which we will discuss on this episode, she also published Healing Sex, a mind-body approach to healing sexual trauma, which has been translated to 3 other languages than English: German, Japanese, and Spanish. In this episode, we will hear a very touching story about how she leveraged somatics to help her mother embody her own longings and wishes in the leading days to her mother's death. You will not hear anything like this anywhere else, I guarantee you. And after her story, we're going to jump deeper into what somatics actually is. And in order to give you a taste of that, I will offer myself, as per the Gumpcast custom, to be a subject in a coaching session where she will use somatics to help me heal some of the pain that I was experiencing during that time because of my divorce. For those of you that have been following the Gumpcast and have listened to the last episode, number 16, with my ex-wife, where we discussed our separation, this episode was recorded 7 months after that. And so it was after my divorce, and it might be really interesting to track how I have changed between the 2 episodes. And if you do notice a difference, please do reflect that back to me, because that would be very interesting for me to know. And if you haven't listened to episode 16, I highly recommend you do before or after this. And I hope that this inspires you to look at life and pain through a new lens. And so please let me know what you think about this, either on findgumption.com or in the comments on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. And without further ado, here's episode 17, Mending the Heart Through Somatics, with Staci Haines. Stacie, hello.
Hi, happy to be here with you, Omar.
Such an honor to have you here. Welcome to the Gumpcast, first of all.
Thank you.
And welcome to this tiny studio. I love how it's shaped differently every single time. This time we have a candle. This is a sandalwood candle.
Lovely.
I can't remember what sandalwood does, but some great things for you. We have these tulips, which I really love, these purple tulips. Got them as a gift. It's interesting. Sometimes I have like a Buddha in here and stuff, but I felt like tulips and sandalwood were...
This is nice. I like the combo, yeah.
Yeah. How does it feel to be in a closet?
Closet with clothes hanging. Personally, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's makeshift. Yeah, it's creative. We're cozied up here with the dog.
Yes, we are. Yes.
It's cold in here, so we have blankets. It's good.
There are a lot of firsts in this episode, yes. The dog on my lap, this is his first podcast episode.
He is super chill.
He's super chill. He looks almost like in a coma. And yes, it's pretty cold. We just came out of the storm. Finally having a bit of a sunny day, but it's pretty cold in this closet, I realized today.
Yeah, there was frost on the roofs this morning. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a cold night.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got hail the other day and I was a little freaked out because it's the end of the world. Hail in Oakland.
No, I think it's happened I've lived here 30 years. I think I've only seen that 3 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was unique.
Yeah, for an Egyptian, it freaks me out to see snow in general. Like, anytime I see snow, I'm like, this is not how the world works. Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I grew up in the mountains of Colorado. I see snow and I'm like, oh, okay. All is right with the world. All what we're used to.
So you're used to this kind of like cold and cozy up weather. Okay, perfect.
I like cozying.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're feeling that. It's this is an episode I've been looking forward to, both in sharing your story and what you do with the world, and also for me to perhaps get a little bit of healing from it. You and I met under really interesting circumstances. I think it was almost a week after I separated.
Oh, wow.
My ex-wife, Shireen. And I've been really enjoying reading your book so far, and we're going to add a link to the comments.
It's called The Politics of Trauma. It's my second book, actually.
Oh.
But it came out in 2019, I think, at this point. So The Politics of Trauma, Somatics, Healing, and Social Justice. And it really is an expression of about 25 years of my work, really looking at what are the intersections between personal change or personal transformation and social change. And so often, at least in the Western context, those are separated instead of seen as one whole, each serving the other. And somatics, which I know we'll dive into more today, is, so, in some ways how I think about it now is somatics is so much about wholeness. It's like the whole self, not the separated mind-body or mind-body-spirit, but how do we enter into our wholeness to actually rediscover or find our wholeness? And I think the body plays an essential role in transformation, like the kind of transformation where we're changed and can be and do and love in different ways than we maybe learned to before.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what the doctor has ordered for me. And so many fascinating concepts, so many elements of hope that this book gave me, that I actually might be able to change the patterns that have controlled my life thus far over the past 35 years. Because sometimes in breakups, I feel like, oh, I'm just in the pattern again, or I'm in this part of the cycle. And it's really interesting to think of how our bodies handle that. So thanks for writing the book.
Welcome.
And why don't we start first with a story about your own heart mending, just to get the audience to, get a feel for who you are.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate us exploring this before we sat down, but I feel like these last couple of years have had a few heartbreaks and heart mendings in them, but the one that I want to tell is that in 2019, unexpectedly, My mom went from very healthy to very sick. And, my grandfather, her father had lived until, 92 or 96, and she has his same physical structure. So we just thought we have her for a long time. And my sisters and I am one of three girls. As a gift for her, kind of for Christmas and 75th birthday together, we all went to Moab, Utah, rented an Airbnb. And I was joking with one of my friends. I'm like, either this is going to be awesome or it's going to be terrible, when you put yourselves back in a space together. But it was really, really wonderful. And, looking back now, that was the last healthy week we all had together. It's like her three girls and her, and hiking and looking at beauty and like the snow on the red rocks. It was gorgeous. But soon after that, all these weird things started happening. And then by the end of May, they said, you all better come together. Something's happening. She had a lot of diagnoses. ER trip led to that. And then by June, by summer solstice, she was having brain surgery. And then we found out it was brain-originating glioblastomas, which, of course, I Googled immediately. So, I went from expecting to have 25 years with my mother to having 2 months, 4 months. It ended up being all together that was July, and she lived until January of 2020. And I'll maybe share more of this later on, but we... Once she was ready to start talking about dying, which took a little time, understandably, but we had really beautiful conversations about what was important to her, how does she want to die, and we have something in body transformation or somatics that's called a declaration. We actually created a declaration or a vision about what was most important to her in the last phases of her life. And then she moved into my house to hospice, so she lived at my house and hospice there for the last 5 months of her life and died at my house. And then I got to keep her there till people got to come visit. And it was very intense. It changed me. It changed me in many, many ways.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I relate. My mom did the same for her mom in the last few months, so I understand how delicate these times can be. And you mentioned the declaration. Can you tell us a little bit more about maybe the concept of declaration first, which I found fascinating in the politics of trauma, and how you made that declaration for her?
Yeah. This is one of the things I love about in some ways, the meta frame or the paradigm shift inside of somatics. Like somatics really says we're transforming toward our longings. We're not trying to get away from something we don't want to be or do anymore. We really want to say, what are you longing for? What do you want? What future do you want? Which opens up a much, much wider horizon and also gets us in touch with, longings aren't conceptual. They can become concepts, but it's such a visceral experience. And often our longings don't even make sense to us because they're often breaking personal, familial, or social rules. But they're deep and they're inspired, right? They come from, I think, someplace much vaster. So a declaration is basically saying, what do you want? What do you long for? And then creating a statement, a visual, but really something you can say to yourself every day and spend time with every day. And we use a language called I am a commitment to, and then filling in it with that vision.
Why is this language particularly important? Which it took me a while to be able to finish statements that I am a commitment. Right?
Grammatically not really correct. Yeah.
Oh, tell us more about why this is important to frame it that way.
Yeah, because we're becoming our visions. We're becoming our declarations. It's not like a to-do list outside of ourselves. So if I say I'm a commitment, so one of my declarations has been, I'm a commitment to using the transformative power of somatics to serve social and climate justice. It's like I'm being that vision, I'm becoming that vision. That might look like a lot of different structures or organizations or projects over time. but it's internalizing and embodying our longings. So that's the odd grammar inside of it, but the I am, right? The I am piece of it. Yeah. So it's August 2019, and I'm sitting at my mom's one-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica in Southern California where she lived. And luckily, my younger sister had found a death doula who was free. She was a therapist, and she's like, no, all this work is my service work. And she'd met with Mom a couple of times, which I think helped my mother, whose name is Mary Kay, helped her realize it was okay to talk with her daughters about death because she didn't want to hurt us. And I'm like, Mom, we're hurting. No matter what, we're hurting. And I'd much rather be honest about it. So we were sitting. She had begun to face that she was dying because she didn't want to die. I mean, she'd just turned 75. And so I was like, okay, Mom, how do you want to die? How do you want to spend your time? Who do you want to spend your time with? And I knew I was listening for her declaration. I didn't really care how we were going to craft it, but I was listening for what's our guide, like what's our through line through this dying process that's in front of us. And the first thing she said is, I don't want to die a bitch. That was classically my mother, and she could have died a bitch. It's true. And it's so funny because so many people will start our visions with, here's what I don't want. I don't want to rerun this pattern of love again. I don't want to do the same thing I just did in my last relationship, which is okay. It's starting to get you there, but we really want to build the muscle of vision. So then I said to my mom, okay, cool. You don't want to die a bitch. Well, how do you want to die instead? And she paused for a long time. I could really see and feel her contemplating the question because, I mean, we all have to answer this question. Like, how do you want to die? How do I want to die? It's one of the big ones.
Yeah.
And she said, I want to die with loving kindness. And I said, because like bitch to loving kindness is a very large jump, right?
It's a wide spectrum right there.
It's a wide spectrum. And I really said, Mom, are you sure? Because I knew inside of me, like if that was her declaration, I will put every internal, external, and community resource I have to helping to fulfill that vision for her. Like that, I knew I was going to commit to that. And she said, I'm sure that's what I want. I said, okay, loving kindness. Okay. And we used that. We came back to that over and over and over again over the next 5 months of her dying as like a truing point, as our joint declaration.
Wow. That's fascinating. So once you've identified that North Star for your mom, how do you stay committed to it? What kind of things did you do to make sure that it happens this way? Because I'm sure death of especially a parent, or just a loved one, is can be a little distracting, I guess, emotionally. A lot of things will come up. How do you stay on the Northern Star voyage?
Yeah. So many things. The widest range of emotions, from helplessness to rage to delight to bliss to spiritual transformation. That whole range was in her dying process. But how we do it is through repetition and practice. Right? So there would be mornings. My mom would wake up she'd wake up so many times during the night. My sleep got so shot through the process, just with all the being woken up. But often in the morning, she would wake up with, and she'd be okay with me telling you this, she'd wake up with fear, with grief, and with anger about dying. She didn't really have a strong sense of where she was going. Like she would say a lot, what is going to happen to me when I die? And we would have those conversations. But usually there would be a time where I would just be with her emotionally, like how is she doing, and really let those emotions out through crying or somatically, we'll talk about today, and I would just sit with her and hold space. I was sharing with you earlier, I feel like, my 30 years in embodied transformation and somatics, and really especially working with trauma, and my 30 years in social movement work totally prepared me to hold my mom's death. Because I was like, I have been many, many places in being with people around trauma and including my own experiences. And I don't feel afraid of those spaces. And I really saw how much that not being afraid also helped me just not be afraid for this radically, maybe next to birth, it's the most radical change process we go through is death. That I wasn't afraid of the components of it. I didn't know what was going to happen every day, but I was like, just show up and be present. Just get wide and bring that capacity. And oddly, I felt I just wasn't afraid. Plus, I'm not afraid of dying. Let me knock on wood someplace. But there's something about that process. I'm sure it'll be very intense when I get there, but it's okay with me. Anyway, so we would practice. We would wake up in the morning, usually 4 till about 5:30 were these emotions. And then at some point, I would go, should we practice now? Like, given loving kindness is how you want to die, should we practice now? And she got very connected to a practice out of the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, which is called the Po-Wa practice, which to me it's a somatic preparation for dying. And, I would just basically read it out of the book, but it's connecting to your version of light, God, letting that stream into you, letting it transmorph your whole body slowly, slowly, slowly into light, and then floating up and merging with that light. It's a beautiful practice. Sometimes we'd have 9 or 10 people on speakerphone with us doing it together.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so it was we would generally tell people 7 a.m., 8 a.m., we're going to do the practice, and we would call in. My sisters would often be on the phone with us. And then we do our gratitude practices. And it was amazing being with someone who's dying, hearing what they're grateful for. And that was like, those components are what brought us back to that vision of dying with loving kindness and letting her be in the process of loss. It's kind of what we'll talk about today. Like, how do you let the loss happen and not override it and then keep practicing toward who we want to be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to transition to this idea of, what our relationship to our bodies means from a somatics perspective. But before we close this also very delicate place, is there anything else you'd like to add about your mom's death, or any other thoughts you'd like to even send to her?
Yeah, I just feel like I want to send her gratitude right now. One of my very, very closest people, he spent a lot of time with us. I really opened up my doors to the community that could be with death, and people came and sat with us often. But he said, because he knew my mom before too, but he said, who knew Mary Kay Haines was going to teach us how to die? And she did. I was like, whoa. So I just want to send love and thanks to her in her current state of being with the cosmos.
Well, I second that, and I want to also send her a lot of gratitude to Mary Kay for teaching me about loss today, and to everyone listening, I hope they can do the same.
Thank you.
Your core profession is a somatics. Would you call yourself a somatics practitioner, somatics teacher, somatics healer?
I'd say teacher and practitioner.
Teacher and practitioner. Okay, so I know you consult a lot of really big organizations. You've worked in also this space between political activism and somatic healing, which is very interesting to me. I've always been drawn to movements that create change, and have seen, I think all my generation has this trauma with the Egyptian revolution, because it's something that happened but didn't happen. We moved forward, moved back. Everyone has their story about why, but I found it very interesting, the intro in Politics of Trauma, just to think of how trauma can keep us shielded. And it's not just like us, doing the things, it's also healing ourselves so that we can rise. And I think about it a lot in the context of doctors and how they need to heal their own traumas to have a voice and speak up. So tell us a little bit about how you define our relationship to our bodies from a somatics perspective and what it enables us to do ultimately.
Thank you for what you just said. It'd be like that generational marker and experience that you're talking about with the uprisings and then forward back. Anyway, I would love to talk about that at another moment also.
Me too.
Yeah, collective trauma.
And I think millions of Egyptians would love to hear that too.
Yeah, yeah. So most of us have been, especially any of us who are trained in more of a Western paradigm, let's say non-Indigenous paradigms, are really trained into this orientation of an objectified body. The body is a thing. Like it's an object. The self is somehow separate from the body. And I think it's one of the profound grounds of learning objectification. It's like we learn to objectify the earth like it's here for human consumption. We learn to objectify our own living organism, like we're organisms. We're 3 billion years of evolutionary wisdom. We're not the end of evolution, right? But that is what we are. And that doesn't mean we're not more than that, right? That doesn't also mean that we're an ineffable, unknowable spirit. But this objectified body is like, it used to sell us so much crap. So I really take an anti-capitalist understanding of the body, an anti-objectification sense of the body, and really want to invite folks into this, we are living organisms. The body, the psychology, the self, the longing spirit, our relational way of being is through a body. And often I'll say Soma because it breaks up that automatic listening of body. It's like, how's your Soma? What's happening in your Soma? Which just basically means your lived embodied experience. So that's what we mean by body in somatics. It's pretty different. And that there's wisdom in sensation, there's information in aliveness or pulsations that goes along with our thinking and our emotions and our relationships. It's not separable until we die. And then it's a mystery.
So one thing you mentioned in the very beginning of your book is that it's really hard to understand the book just by reading it.
Yeah.
Because it's all about a somatic embodied experience. And so I am willing to take one for the team, but also for myself, because that's one thing I've been thinking a lot about during reading your book. How can this information help me get through what I'm dealing with now, which is deep heartbreak and a lot of anger and a lot of resentment that I don't want to carry, but a lot of thoughts that seem to be recurring, And so a lot of guilt also about what brought me here, what could have I done differently. It's I realize a lot of the tools I have are very much in my head. And so I'm curious to see if we can use my woes as an example for others to learn from and bring a little bit of healing also to me through what you teach.
Well, thank you for being willing to bring yourself and be vulnerable. Can I ask you some questions and we'll kind of get in?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Somatics kind of has two beats. Just, and this might help the audience listening. One is to really be deeply with the wound, the heartbreak. It's something we call blending. It's being with it exactly in the direction it's going in the Soma. And then one of the other beats is purposeful practice, or expanding our somatic capacity to be more aligned with those longings. So I want to start here, and if you don't have an answer, it's totally fine. But given all the heartbreak and given your divorce, what is it that you're longing for?
a grounded partnership.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I've been feeling, longing for more partnership, even though everything in my head is telling me, no, take time off. But I feel like I've been longing for a certain type of partnership that feels much further away now. And that's maybe why there's the anger, resentment.
About it not being here.
Not being here, yeah.
And not having been available in your marriage.
Yeah, like a balanced partnership that moves forward and feels safe. A lot of these things.
Okay, so a grounded partnership, a balanced partnership, and one where there's a quality of consistent safety.
Yeah.
Okay, so that longing for that, which sounds like it's been with you for a while, where do you feel that longing in your body?
My back.
And where, like behind your heart or all the way up and down your spine?
Like behind the heart towards my lower back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you just let yourself be just a little bit more present with that longing, or almost make more space for that longing, what's there?
It feels like a pain, like a discomfort. It's like I see it as it's like a bubble of discomfort pulling on different muscles between like the lower ribs and my hips, like that area, that region. It's more discomfort, like I almost can't sit straight anymore. I have to keep moving. So it feels like, yeah.
Interesting. And is it warmer or cooler?
Warm.
Okay. And is it moving or is it more still?
Moving, like a bubble that keeps morphing almost. Yeah.
Okay. And that's really the longing for that quality of partnership? Or is there something else there too?
It feels like instability. So it's there is a sense of longing of, it's almost like my spine is now longing for balance, like trying to find that balance, but there's very little friction. It feels like Jello almost. So it's like,
okay. Moving
and trying to find a stable point, but it's not really like restless. Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, you are some cycles along in your heartbreak and your heart mending. What wants attention now?
Well, I mean, it's about 7 months now into this, so there is more of there's less of being with the heartbreak and more of being content with how life is right now, trying to find this balance on my own, and being I'm able to start being more grateful towards having time for myself, being able to also grateful for the creativity and the burst of creativity that came from that pain, and at the same time still having like certain feelings of loneliness at night, bursts of anger that would come out of nowhere, and sometimes still when I get messages from her, I get really angry, and I am struggling to do what society tells me to do, which is to not engage with her, and at the same time there is a longing to connect with her, or connect to her. And I noticed that whenever that happens, still up to this day, there's this, I don't know if that's actual longing or what, but there's definitely a part of me that has like wishful thinking, right? Like it's gonna all work out ultimately. And then there's another part of me that's really like, no, this is over and you need to move on, and like you need to stop talking to her because she brings you down and into that vortex again. So this seems to be like the challenge of the moment.
And you just saw her too.
I saw her and we finalized our divorce a little over a month ago. Yeah. So that definitely opened up a lot of that wound.
And so far in this process of, change and loss and divorce, how have you been changed by it?
I feel like it's, how it has changed me is such an interesting question, because it, a big piece is that I feel like I'm almost ready to lose everything.
Yeah.
So back to your idea of like not being afraid of death, and I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but I have been thinking also about death a lot in the past few months. Both, being okay with, if I lost the person that I loved so much, then losing a job or a home or a car is okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the positive end of it. Yeah.
Okay. So this might sound like a funny question, but I'm going to really ask you to drop your attention into your sensations. Just really drop into your body and let your body answer the question I'm about to ask you, or maybe questions. And not everyone knows just how to drop into sensation. We talked about it earlier, but if there's folks listening where it's hard to actually feel themselves, I just want to be like, that's normal. Often when we've been doing other things like compartmentalizing or numbing, it's hard to find ourselves. That can be the first part of healing. But you can sense yourself. And just I'm going to remind you to soften your eyes and relax your jaw. That helps us be able to find more. So here's my first question. Just let your body answer the question. How do you already know how to find balance yourself?
My feet. The answer that came up. I'm thinking of the center of my foot. Yeah, I'm just feeling a lot of the weight in the center of my feet, and just the image is me like standing with my arms towards like the sky and firmly rooted through the center of my foot.
Nice. Okay. So take a minute and almost like if you're going to just give yourself a moment to register that somatically. Okay, you already know how to balance inside of you. And I'm wondering if can you feel that quality of balance again in your feet, earth?
Yeah.
What does it have to say to your low back? Because your low back is having a hard time finding balance.
Relax. Yeah, relax, we got this. With the words.
Lovely. Okay, relax, we got this. Yeah. And can your low back for the moment feel how much balance your feet have?
Yeah, I'm getting a little less antsy. I can almost feel my back feel straighter.
Okay.
Less tender. There's a part that's still kind of jiggling.
Jiggle and balance can go together.
I can feel it. It's actually very responsive. It's interesting.
Why I'm going to ask you another question in a moment, but why I asked you that is you use the word balance so many times about relationship and in your longings, but it was always externally oriented. And And I'm like, oh, did maybe through this disruption of relationship, did you also somewhere along the line forget that you know how to balance inside of you already?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And let your body answer this question. How long in your 35 years, how long have you already known how to balance you with you?
I'm getting images of like me being 5 years old in like acrobatics class with that, or playing basketball when I was a bit older.
Great.
Yeah, I'm getting images of me learning how to balance throughout my lifetime, which is kind of cool. It's like a reel.
There's a lot in there, a lot of practice, a lot of knowing, huh? Yeah. Embodied knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. We wanna keep that, and probably I'm gonna suggest a little practice around that. But first, again, letting your body answer the question. How is your heart?
Restricted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing seeing like this force field around my rib cage almost, protecting my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, yeah. It feels like it needs that protective layer, and I'm generally finding it hard to receive love. Like I almost feel self-conscious to receive people's love. It's much easier to give love, because. And it's interesting, I'm making that connection now, but I was thinking about that earlier this week. And there's this fear of if I receive love from someone, there's then an expectation that can throw me off balance or take me away of this, self journey that I'm on now. So it's, seeing a lot of protection around the heart space.
Okay, this is all, it's all really important. And also this piece of if I let love in, there's going to be an obligation. Rather, I just get to let love in because someone just pointed it toward me.
Yeah.
My guess is that had some history to it, huh?
Yeah.
If we had more time, I would do some other things, but we need to pause here.
Yes.
Is that okay for you?
Yes.
Okay. Can I offer you a purposeful practice connected to this?
Yes, please.
If there's maybe it's daily, to just take these, literally it can be 2 minutes, but to sit down, connect with this electrical, alive protection, and just do what we just did. Be with it, get out of its way, let it take care of what it's taking care of for you. And if there's gratitude, send gratitude to it. But be conscious with that protection process as a daily practice. And to do that for 2 weeks and see what happens.
Okay.
You down?
I'm very down. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much, Stacie.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me something to heal through, and for bringing your practices, and just the work that you do is, I think, very profound and is needed. If there was any doubt that we need this in the world, like now, there definitely isn't any. And thanks for your time and for your friendship.
I'm delighted. It's lovely, feels creative and relationship building to get to do this with you. And I also appreciate that you're an artist who is extending their work and vulnerability into the world to share with others. I respect that a lot, appreciate that. So more to come.
Yes, more to come. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, this is Omar again. I hope you enjoyed this episode. There are 2 much longer segments, including my session with Stacie, that we were not able to include in this episode because we do try to keep it as short as possible, and you can still get access to these 2 sound bites on our exclusive audio for the subscribers at findgumption.com. And if you become a paid subscriber, you get access to that and get access to certain paid newsletter editions. You get access to my books early on before printing. And most of all, you get to support us to continue doing this work. And I would like to send out a huge shout out to Mustafa Al-Aizabi, who is the sound engineer and does his best to make the audio sound as crisp as it does for your listening pleasures. I am really excited to announce episode 18, which is going to be the story of an incredible Egyptian gay man and his resilience and authenticity in living life on his own terms, but also confronting those that are closest to him about that. I will see you then.